What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the TrevBeats Show. Today, I wanted to continue something that we started, which was a roundtable of legends. And today, my legends are in the realm of percussion. Now, as you know, everybody loves food with seasoning. And without the percussion, we don't have the seasoning. So sometimes that doesn't get enough respect and doesn't get enough spotlight. And today we're going to put a spotlight on some of these amazing, amazing musicians that have touched all of our lives for over 3 decades.
TrevBeats Show, TrevBeats Show. Yeah. TrevBeats Show, TrevBeats Show.
Without further ado, I want to introduce Bashiri Johnson, Karl Perazzo, and Kevin Ricard. My brothers. My brother.
Hey, man.
Hey, what's happening?
It's happening. Good to see you.
Good.
Everybody.
I just want to give everybody a little heads up and let everybody know who we actually have here today on the TrevBeats Show. And, you know, not only is he one of the master percussionists. First of all, let me just say this out front. Everyone here is a master. Everyone here is a session player. Everyone here has done gigantic things live. So we don't have to just specify one person. These words apply to everybody. But one of the masters we have here has been a member of the Santana band since 1991? Over 30 years. Yeah, over 30 years. And that is Mr. Karl Perazzo. So thanks so much for being here, Karl. I appreciate you, man. We also have someone that has been in the home of everybody. So Kev, you've been everybody's house guest, whether you know it or not. This is somebody that's been on American Idol for years and years, The Tonight Show, and, you know, holds it down for everybody all the time, including just last night doing, what did you say? It was like your 22nd, 23rd?
21st or 22nd. Bash would be able to tell me better because he did it before I did.
So the 21st and 22nd consecutive Clive Davis party. That's you know, this is one of the biggest things that we do in LA every year, right before the Grammys. And Mr. Kevin Ricard has been holding that seat down for a few decades after our other guest, Mr. Bashiri Johnson, who, you know, has played with everybody from Michael Jackson to Whitney Houston, Madonna. I mean, this is one of the earliest people to adopt to, you know, sound packs for percussion, has one of the most used sound packs in history that we'll talk about later. And, you know, he's also a Bed-Stuy, New York, you know, legend. And that's Bashiri Johnson. So, gentlemen, welcome you all to the TrevBeats Show. Appreciate you guys for coming on. Man, so there's so much to unpack here. I mean, first of all, I'd like to say I believe that everybody here is Team LP. Am I mistaken? Are we all LP guys?
Yep.
LP.
All LP.
So shout
Yes,
out to LP, you know, obviously the most OG percussion company, and just, you know, on so many records and so many, you know, influential pieces of music. So we always got to give love to them that hold us all down. Now, let's get right into it, man. So Bash, you mind if we call you Bash? I mean, you know, I don't know if the world knows, but that's our endearing nickname for our brother Bashiri Johnson is Bash. So,
and appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. What an incredible name to be for a percussionist.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's just God already. You know what I'm saying? So here's my question to you. It's like, when we're in the studio and when you're doing your thing, as opposed to, you know, playing live, does knowing how the end result's going to come out because you've done so many records, does that change the way you physically play in the studio? Or, you know, do you play less because you know what's going on and you don't have to play as much? Or how does that work with you physically versus live playing in the studio?
That's a great question, brother. So when I'm recording, when I'm doing records or film or any of that, I actually try to see myself as an audience member listening to the record or watching the film so that what they hear from me will be memorable, will be legacy. so that they hear, oh wow, that cue is really beautiful, you know. So I try to make sure that whatever I'm contributing to whatever the project is, it's going to be something that's going to stand the test of time, and people are going to want to hear that, you know. So, or think of all the records we grew up with. We don't just sing the chorus and the hook. We sing the whole record. You know,
Yeah.
we sing every part. We sing the horns. We sing the backgrounds. We sing the drum groove. You know, we sing the whole record, like James Brown records. We sing the whole record, all the parts, the guitar licks, bootsy, everything. So I try to make sure that what I'm contributing to whatever the project, that it's something that as an audience member, I want to remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I completely hear that, because for me personally, like talking about James, man, we can't listen to the Payback without the Kabasa part. That's the
Right.
that's the glue of the whole record right there. That's the glue of the whole funk right there. You know what I'm saying? So Karl, like we said before, you joined Santana in '91, and now you've been there through every evolution of that band. So you've had several drummers, you know, you've had some interchanging. Of course, we lost our dear brother, and a lot of things that, you know, have happened in that situation. You've been there through all of that. And you once told a story about practicing records till the needle actually broke. You know what I'm saying? So in an era of like YouTube tutorials and shortcuts, you know, can you even teach that level of obsession anymore, you know, of practice discipline? And how do you maintain that fire, you know what I'm saying, to play Smooth or Oye Como Va with the same intensity for, you know, I don't know, the 5,000th time? Like, how does that work, man?
I no, those are all good questions, and sometimes difficult to. But I could tell you this, that it's the first time always. One thing is to play the music, but you also have to be a fan of the music, and it just makes it different. We don't play Ogamawa the same way or Smooth the same way. It changes within our realm, you know. And yes, I've been there through a lot of drummers, and everyone has an amazing contribution to the band, right? And sometimes it's the percussionist that has to make the adjustment to allow the drummer to have a voice. Because in some cases, the percussion is the garnish and the drummer's the meat and the potatoes. And sometimes in Santana, the percussion is the meat and potatoes and the drummer is the garnish. So once we find that middle ground, and we allow each other to be who we are in a band that really, it has structure, but it doesn't, you know?
I see.
And sometimes there's fills going on. It sounds like five guys trying to get out of a door sometimes. but if you're quick and you can find the holes, you know, I'll stab, you know, I mean, I hear the drummer go, ooh, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know,
so it has conversation. It's wonderful, man. It's a wonderful place to be. I'm blessed to be there for more than 30 years.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because we're going to get back to that energy later on in the conversation, because one thing that comes up when we're talking about AI, which we'll speak about later, is it doesn't have the ability to do those in the moment conversational things. It has to be, you know, it bases everything off stuff that's already happened. But we'll get back to that later. So Kevin Ricard, ladies and gentlemen, you know, everybody here obviously has done all the above, right? Like we said earlier, TV, whatever. But Kev has done so much TV. You were on The Tonight Show, you know, you were on Idol every day. And, you know, a lot of times people don't understand that no matter what musicianship you have, that world is the pressure cooker. It's different. It's a different thing. Because there's always about time, and it's always about, you have to be present. You don't get the time over. This is it.
No.
A lot of pressure, right? So it's like, you're like the definition of a pro, man. I mean, everybody here is. I keep doing these disclaimers, but obviously y'all all know. But it's like, you know, it takes a certain mind to do that. and you've held down these house bands for so long, Dancing with the Stars, like so many things. And you know that when you go to work, millions of people are watching. So what's the mental preparation that you have for a TV gig versus, for something live? When the director is counting down and you have to switch from, whatever, a Brazilian groove to a pop thing in 5 seconds, where does that internal time come from? Because there's a lot of that, a lot of shifting and medleys and all that. Where do you pull from with that, man?
Just the fact that I've been at this for a really long time, and I grew up as such a fan of music that, in a sense, I've kind of, downloaded musical sense and grooves and stuff from the years that I've been playing. And then it's just a matter of being prepared, having your charts together, knowing what you're going to play in this moment, because a lot of this stuff is kind of fixed in terms of what you need to play here or what makes sense. Other times it's at my discretion. So I get to create a part. And all of us have been in those situations. Sometimes there's a chart for a pop song and there might not be any percussion. So I have to kind of think something that works with it, that makes sense and it's musical. And I have to just do it in a fast fashion, because we're moving fast and we don't have time to second guess ourselves. And, you may look back some years down the line or the next week and say, maybe I should have played something else there. But you can't. You got to play in that moment. You got to be present. You got to make sure you got your eyes on the chart and know where the edits are, because if you don't, you're going to be, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb, and this stuff is live. So, and Ricky, having worked for Ricky for 28 years now, 27, 28 years, Ricky Minor, the music director, he always told us, hey man, do your best. And maybe you might not always be exactly perfect, but if you can get 95% of it, 97%, you're good. So you don't beat yourself up about it. You strive for perfection, but the live moment, you have to react and you have to be aware of everybody that you're working with, and also bring your musicality to the situation. But the other thing is just the calmness. It has to be a certain calmness, because you get freaked out and then you're useless to everybody. So yeah, because this stuff is pressure. There is that pressure of we're live to the world right now.
Yeah.
Doing the Oscars is the same thing. We've done the Oscars 3 or 4 times, and it's a lot, and stuff is moving fast. So charts are flying literally off the stand. As soon as I finish a cue, boom, I'm off to, trying to figure out what moves I need to make and what instruments I'm playing.
Yep.
So yeah, you have to have a certain sense of be centered and know yourself, and know that your musicality will carry the day.
Yeah.
And for me, that's kind of everything.
Yep. No, I feel that. And you know what, man? In the times that I've been in that situation, especially us being drummers, from my side of the chair, when it does come to charts and moving quickly, I've developed a system, that I put together, and the link will be in the description. That's a real fail-safe system if you want to, if you're a drummer or percussionist and you need to have charts digitally and be able to change them and all that. So, cats can check that out in the description. But that's leading us into this next question I have for everybody, but we'll start with you, Karl. So it's like you all have seen everything evolve on every instrument, right? Every instrument has evolved with the electronics, samplers, all that kind of stuff, including our instrument, including percussion. So in the modern percussion rig, is it about sound, or is it about, just having the things that you need? Like, how much of your gear is dictated by, just basically what's out there, or do you just put a rig together for exactly what you need for that specific gig? We could talk to you first, Karl.
Well, there is that where you don't want to bring a pipe wrench to a carpenter job. But I think, you talk about the evolution, and these us 4 on this panel come from a time that we listened to music as opposed to we watch it.
Right.
And it's a big difference because when you're listening, you either have to stare at the album cover or the disc spinning around, or you have to read the album cover to become what you're hearing. And now people are seeing it. Doesn't really. It's just okay. Well, next I've seen that before. Let me scroll to the next one, and it gets that easy. But each instrument has a voice, right? And at one point, I used to teach on the congas that the congas had 6 basic sounds, and now they have many sounds because of the evolution, right? Master guys like Bash, these guys, when you talk about Kevin, these guys play the instruments like, even it's a fuche or a shake, they play it with such mastery and sensitivity that it really fits on what's going on. It doesn't have to be an instrument that's in the forefront. I think including yourself, 95% of what we do is hold time and play music. And the other 5% is, you get the solo and then there's the wow factor, right?
Right.
Right. And at the same time, and with that being said, there's a certain amount of discipline to just play quarter notes on a cowbell or grab the shaker and play it a certain way, right? Whether the accent is on the back of the shaker or on the front of the shaker, right? Or when Bash takes a fuche and he, most people play it like they shake it now, and he, they have that rolling technique or the platero. It doesn't have to be top Brazilian guy.
Right.
What we have is the understanding of good music and good feelings and what fits at the right time.
Yeah.
It doesn't make us the best in our field. It just makes us the best in that moment.
Yeah.
I've seen every one of you play, every one of you. And I can tell you what touched me the most is the time that you keep is the juice of an orange. When you squeeze it and you're getting everything out, you're not even eating the orange. You're just, this is what really, for me, is mastery. And so when I bring instruments to Santana, it has to be what fits the genre of music.
Right.
I'm not going to bring a glockenspiel,
Right.
unless I'm doing a film where they want that, And even when I do a film and they say, no, we want Havana, Cuba. And I said, you sure you don't want Carmen Miranda? Because there's a certain amount of simplicity and understanding of, okay. Oh, okay, you really want Havana? Or you're like, okay, you want Mozambique or Compasa? Or,
Sure.
you start breaking it down like that because we have that the ability to talk that way and express ourselves that way. But, I've been in situations, that really, when it comes to taking a timbal solo, you better know how to do a pop one.
Yeah. Hey, man, let me tell you something. You ain't never lied with that. And I'm going to be honest with you. As far as what you're saying about the how people describe things to us in general, man, it's like we're like also translators. You know what I'm saying? Because, these people say they want this and we know what they mean. It's nothing to do with what they say. You know what I'm saying? It's like we have to be the ones that mean, oh, you mean this? Because I remember doing a session not too long ago. It was for some movie thing, and one of those rare times or a TV show where they had, the suits in the room, in the studio. And that never fares well because this guy was coming over to me like, hey, man. And then the producer's there. This guy's coming on the sidebar like, hey, man, when it gets to that part, I want you to be like, pop, pop, the beat, pop, beat, pop, pop, pop. I mean, literally. And I'm like, yo, what is this dude talking about? And he was so serious too. And, basically all he wanted was some timbali accents, but he didn't know how to articulate that. You know what I'm saying? So you have to know how to synthesize. Bash same question. I know, you've had so many different types of rigs. And I think also one thing I will say, from looking on from my chair, it's always an amazing thing to see percussionist rigs. Like percussionist rigs, there should be an exhibit, man. There should be literally an art exhibit. No, for real, I'm dead serious. It would be amazing to have an exhibit at a museum with these multiple percussion rigs through the years. Because, man, they're like architectural works of art, especially when racks started coming in. I'm serious, man. It's like, it's amazing, man. And cats just, so Bash, you were in the forefront of that whole world too. It's like, well, how do you view your rig? Like if you're doing a session, what do you bring into a session, man? I know it's a lot, but streamline it for us.
Yeah, right. Well, of course, it depends on every session. Every session is different. It used to be. I'm going to talk a little bit about a little back in the day. I'll talk about the present, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I believe the future will hold. Okay.
Yep.
So back in the day, of course, I had a cartage guy, and I had like eight road cases of gear, and that stuff would move around from session to session in New York. And, I would have like 2, 3, sometimes 4 sessions a day back in the jingle days. I was doing tons and tons of commercial jingles.
Yeah.
So, my stuff would go from Hit Factory to Media, to Sorcerer to all the studios, all over Sony.
Media Apartments. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right. In that case, back then, I just had all my stuff shipped from session to session, and then based on what was needed, I could just go into the drawer and pull it out. Okay, that has shifted because there's not many producers are wanting you to bring your whole rig. They'll basically give you a list of, hey, I kind of want some congas, bongos, tims, possibly some hand colors, and maybe djembe. So then I could show up with that, and then I'll be able to serve, the production and the producer with what they asked for. I always bring a little bit more, some exotic stuff or something that I think would fit whatever the project is. For the future, it's a wild card because I'm being asked to program stuff now. People asking me to program percussion. I say, well, I could play on it. They said, no. My budget is only this. I can't afford an engineer. So can you just program something for me?
Wow.
That is kind of something that we have to look at. And I just want to stake this to the viewers because I think it's important to have a lot more humanity in your projects. It's very easy to type into the computer and say, hey, I want like the top 20 records that Bashiri Johnson has played on that's been over 1 million sellers. I want that sound on this project. AI will deliver. Okay. So, this is where we're at. And this is what we all have to face. Karl knows this. Kevin knows this.
Yeah.
Knows, Trev. Yeah. It doesn't mean that we're going to be put out of work. We're not going to be replaced because we are, humans that are still, we're pulling stuff from the universe. Okay. We are the messages that we get rhythmically, that's what we share. Right. So you can't get that from AI and the computer. But we're also playing commercial music.
Right.
We're all doing commercial music, right?
Yeah.
Commercial music, the audience, they're willing to accept whatever, the AI Suno will deliver. So, that's where we're at. And that's kind of where we're going. To answer your question about what I show up with, hopefully people can, kind of let me know in advance what it is that they kind of need. And I'll bring it. And then I'll also bring some other specialty items, some candy that'll make them go, ooh, ah, ah, chika,
Sure.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, no, I hear that, man. And I find it amazing that music has been devalued to the people that make it, but not to the people that own it in most cases. Well, the people that make it that own it, it's still devalued compared to what it was. But these corporations now are making all this money, and it's like we're seeing all these things go down. Budgets, you know, to where you like a lot of people are in the same boat. Like you said, they can't afford to have cartage and people come, and it's on all of our instruments. And I just think that's amazing because I don't think it has to be like that. I think there's a tremendous amount of greed involved, and that's why things are where they are. So, Kev, I'm waiting to do you on this question last because you probably don't even know this. Because I'll say this: I've always played percussion, and I could have really played percussion like out in the world. I would never take a live percussion gig. I've only played percussion in studio because I don't feel like it's fair to all my brothers like you that really do this, and it's already in short order. So I didn't want to muddy up that water for my brothers. So I've always played, and I play. Like for real play.
Yeah. Oh, I know you do.
But I don't do it live. But Kev, you probably don't know this. You may remember years ago, you did a session in my dad's old studio. And I just remember for whatever reason, I came there because I had a room there and I saw the cases in the hallway and I peeked in the room and I saw you with your cases behind you with the drawers open. Bro, that was such an impression on me. Like, I wanted to get to that. It took me years. One day I would be able to have all the gear I want in a roll case and pull it out. Kev, that was super inspirational, man. And now, of course, it's the other way. Like, all these dang road cases, too many damn cases. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But, man, like, you know, knowing that you have to maybe cover, 20 different genres of music in one TV show, what's your process like for the gear that you bring? I mean, are you still doing the everything behind you with drawers and all that at everything? Or what's your rig like for all the stuff that you're doing?
Well, TV wise, kind of got a rig that works for a lot of stuff that kind of covers. It's just, congas, bongos, timbales, toys, and then electronics. And then if I need to, I'll bring a djembe, maybe lose a conga, or if maybe a set of bata drums on a stand, something Brazilian. It just depends on the show or the project.
Right.
But my basic rig hasn't changed in a long, long time. I mean, I use my rolling pads, I have pedals, which, by the way, a big influence on that was watching Bash back in the day because he was already at the forefront of all that. And I realized, well, that's a way to cover more ground with, hand claps, snaps, tambourines, whatever. You might be playing the timbale on this side, congas on this side, but you need your feet to do something.
Right.
So that rig that you see mostly on TV when I do TV stuff is still pretty much the same over all the, a couple of decades. But, session wise, the days of you sending a huge truck of stuff to sessions doesn't happen as much.
Right.
I mean, I did one at the beginning of January, and they wanted the dog and pony show, right? They wanted, so the stuff gets sent, and then some of it gets used and some of it doesn't, but they wanted to have those options.
Right.
So, and then if I'm on a movie, most of the time I'm not principal on a movie, I'm part of the section.
Sure.
So like we did Zootopia just recently with Michael Giacchino, and there was 9 percussionists on the film.
Oh yeah.
And let me tell you, the back wall at the soundstage was, I mean, you kind of were like, it was a maze trying to get through because there was just so much of everything. And that didn't include there's another room where Alex Acuna, Walter Rodriguez, and Euro Zambrano were playing like congas, bongos, Latin stuff,
right,
and Afro-Cuban stuff and Afro-Venezuelan stuff. So there was all of this percussion, but in that one, I was just a part of the section. So the section leader sent his cases.
Oh, let me guess.
A lot.
That was Brian.
I mean, no. In this case, it was Dan Greco.
Oh, okay.
It was Dan Greco.
All right.
Legendary, movie guy.
Yeah.
Brian wasn't on this one, but Pete Corpella was on it.
Carl?
And, Carl, you got a question?
I have been blessed to play on Kevin Ricard on his rig more than once.
Yeah, you have. That's true. We've done that quite a few
on
times.
numerous TV. I've seen Bash's stuff on TV shows, and passing. I'm like, oh shoot, because you could put up a djembe and it'd be the same like me having 20 things, and he'd get the same sound. but Kevin's stuff, it's a Ferrari.
Right.
It's a Lamborghini. I got to tell you, there's congas, timbal, everything that you want is 3/8 of an inch apart from each other.
Right.
And on the floor is an array of pedals that I had no idea. I was like, man. And it was just, everything was just, all I had to do was just move my hands a little bit. And I was hitting things and different sounds and everything it was perfect. The only thing that was wrong with that rig, and you're my brother, I'm going to tell you because you're my brother.
It's all right.
Is that Kevin is 6'1" and I'm 4'3". And the congas were up here. And did I have to stand on a box, Kevin, or not? Did I have to stand on a box? I had to stand on a box.
Little apple cart.
It was either that or Kevin was going to be behind me, lifting me up.
Yeah, here, play that.
That's funny, man.
But until this day,
man.
I've never been that impressed. I was like, hey, man, this thing,
Yeah.
this is
Well,
American
see, that's-
Idol, cabrón.
Yeah.
It's just,
Well, see, that's
it's
the thing,
amazing.
man.
Yeah.
Well, I guess when you
That's
do
the
it every day, you become a master at that.
You got to make it so that you can get to stuff quickly. And so I want to be able to turn right and turn left,
Yeah.
and just everything is right where I need to. In case I need, like last night I was playing shaker and congas, and then I put the shaker down and picked up a hand tambourine. So everything's got to be within reach. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
So that's a different thing. But like in the studio, it just depends on what they need. A lot of times they'll tell you exactly, okay, I just need this, this, and this. And then I'll bring a few extras like Bash was saying, because you want to cover it.
Yeah.
I did one episode of a show called Fargo, and it was old-timey music. It was like washed-up bass, fretless banjo, some kind of like old, wind, pipes and ocarinas and stuff. And so I knew I wasn't going to be sending congas
Right.
and bongos because that wasn't the vibe.
Right.
So I had like some washboard. I had a whole cup old washboards and I had a set of gloves with thimbles on them. And then I also had some loose thimbles with like cymbals and wood blocks and cowbells and, just different stuff to make it sound that authentic. So you just have to adjust to whatever your situation is musically and have the sensitivity to know that. You got to have some musical stuff behind you, some, appreciation of, I'm a music geek from like the 1900s, even going back. Like I listen to all that stuff because I just love that the development of all of the music, but also it just goes into your musical computer. So you have all these things that you can pull from. So when you sit down to do something like that, you sound like you know what you're doing instead of just somebody stumbling down stairs holding some pots.
Yeah. That's something else that I want to point out too. That's true with all of you all here. See, the number one thing is authenticity. And it's like, whenever anybody here on this panel goes to play something, all the decisions are going to be made by the music. It's not by what I think it is, it's what the music requires. And that's why everybody's had such storied careers, because the music always wins. And, it's like you said something about listening to music from different time periods and genres. That's all research. It's the equivalent of research.
Yeah.
So that way, when it's time and somebody calls you, it's like, oh, I know exactly what that is and what they were using, and this is what we're going to do. And it goes into the musical computer, like you said. So since we're talking about computers, real quick, if you're new here, welcome to the TrevBeats Show. Make sure you subscribe if you want to stick around. And for the regulars, if you ever feel compelled to throw some extra support our way, check out the membership options next to the subscribe button. It's strictly for those who want to help us do more, but your viewership is support enough. Now back to the show. We got to talk about what I call, wait, let me hear that. I hear something. The big elephant in the room. And that's AI.
Yeah.
So, there's so many different schools about this, you know, and I respect everybody's opinion. You know, I do a lot of work as a producer too, so I have almost two different philosophies myself. But I wanna go there and get everybody's opinion in this panel right now. So, do we believe that it's evolution or revolution? Like, Bash, you were a pioneer early on in the sampling, you know, days, and it's like, you know, you kind of were on the first wave of drag and drop stuff for producers. You know what I mean? You were early in that. So now,
Yeah.
like you mentioned earlier, you could just prompt something and it can pull from everything that we've done. Let's not forget that's where it's coming from now. But
Yeah.
it can kind of get close and capture not only the sonic part, but the actual instincts, which is so amazing. It can capture the feel and the instincts to a certain degree. So now that we're looking at AI that can actually generate stuff without us, you know, is the human feel gonna be extinct one day? I mean, there's a spiritual component always and a vibe that I don't think a machine can ever replicate. But, you know, as guys who created kind of the libraries that have kind of morphed into where everything is now, are we training our replacements or are we just evolving? What do you think about that?
Hmm. I believe that we're just going through the evolution of music, the evolution of ourselves as humans, and the evolution of art. So I believe we're transitioning and we're growing and we're journeying. I don't believe we can be replaced. You can't replace Karl Perazzo. You can't replace Kevin Ricard. We can't replace Trevor Lawrence Jr. So it's not about replacement. What I'm doing personally is I use the technology. I use the technology and the projects that I'm doing now. If I utilize it, I write on the project AI assisted.
Oh
That's what I
wow.
do.
Oh
That's
wow.
that's what I do. Yeah, that's what I do personally. I
Wow.
write down if I use it and it's part of the record or it's part of my production or part of my writing process, AI assisted. So that's what I do. That's what I do so I can let the public know that it has been used. I don't have a problem using the tools. I came up in the days when it was the advent of the first drum machine, the SP 1200, and it was like I had a choice. Do I go on the side of the purists who are like, nah, man, I'm not messing with that. I don't need it. I'm not feeling it. Or do I embrace the technology, figure out how to program it, and advance my toolkit so that I can get more work using it? So I chose to embrace the technology, learn it, utilize it, and master it so that I can employ it as part of another tool in my arsenal. So that's what I did. I believe we're at the same point in time now. AI, you have a choice. You can choose not to use it, or you can choose to use it. The future is going to be the future with or without you using it or not. You have a choice. So, me, I'm using the technology, I'm learning it, I'm rocking it. And if somebody needs something like real quick, and I need some options, I'll go to it to get some options and then I'll tweak it or whatever, or I'll replace it because I know that, oh, that's what the computer thinks. That's not what I feel. And I'll go a different direction.
Yeah.
But I am one that I utilize technology. It's another tool in my toolkit.
That's right. Okay, so there you go. I mean, that's you're hearing it from somebody that's been around through all these evolutions, as actually all of us have. But that take is pretty much the same take, probably that happened when all this stuff happened. It's another time when drum machines came out, when pads came out, when samplers. This is just another time. But for some reason, with this AI is coming this huge moral displacement between people, and it's just amazing that the same people complaining about AI are complaining on their iPhone. You know, they're posting stuff on their phone, and they got a digital camera, and they got Siri, and they got GPS and all that navigation, but they got something to say about AI. It's just an amazing thing. Karl, What do you think about AI? And you know, is it going to replace us, or is it just the next thing?
We had this discussion when disco came out. You know, oh no, what's going to happen? You know, but we've all survived. You know, I think that Bashiri's 100% right. You know, myself, I kind of shut the door. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going down that direction. The difference between drag and drop and AI is if you dragged and dropped, it was still Bashiri.
Right. True.
You know, I think the way I look at AI is it's an interpretation. It's an invitation. It's a template of what's really possible. Like it's things not seen or heard. It's totally familiar, but brand new. So for me, it's an invitation to challenge myself musically. I still have the vocabulary I have. The difference between AI and myself is I know that one note equals a million notes. I know that one note has the capacity to touch a million hearts. AI doesn't have that capacity.
No.
It's only numbers. It's only one and zeros. And it has its own vocabulary, which is vast, much more than mine, but it doesn't have the heart.
Wow.
But it's believable. And the one thing that we have, guys, is we're going to play live.
Yep.
Because people turn on their television. People line up to see us at venues. That's what we have.
True.
I'm super impressed in some of the stuff that I've heard. And I have friends that are putting out singles and stuff like that in artistry and that don't exist. On the Purple Rain tour, you know, I was like always with the Lynn machine. You know, I didn't have to play a kick drum.
Right.
It was there for me.
But hold on. I mean, let's imagine the record spinning backwards for all of my new listeners. We're not going to overlook that real quick because I think people need to understand the words that were just said. Not on the red or the white or the black or the orange or the green tour, but the Purple Rain tour. This is first-hand experience in the moment with the most line-pushing artists of the time. So you're giving us information from the source at the time when the line was really being pushed. So say that again, Karl. I just you know.
Okay. Here it is.
Come on, man. Give me.
I had a foot pedal and it just went, and I played snare and hi-hat where I had a trigger bass drum here with a bass drum standing up.
Wow.
Here's the thing. It's not by hook or by crook. We didn't shuck and jive, slip and slide. We made those things musical.
Wow.
We turned that box into a circle. Right?
Bar.
Well said. Well said.
We gave the machine a feel of the understanding of if you have a whole note or a quarter note where you could play in the middle of the beat, you could play behind the beat or in front of the beat, and you made the Lynn sound what it is.
You weren't locked in yet.
Yo. I'm sorry. I just have to stop for a second.
That's correct.
He turned the box into a circle, yo.
I love that. Can I keep that one?
Yo, that right there is saying so much. And you know what? And the great thing about it is for all the listeners here, because, you know, those of you that watch this channel, I've heard all my different discourse with different people on this subject through these different episodes. He's not bashing anything. There's no, I hate you. And, you know, it's getting too polarized, y'all. Like, it's a tool. Karl personally is not trying to use it in the certain ways that some of us might be using it. But you got to also understand he was a line pusher. So where he's coming from it's nothing. He was making things that became the standard. He was helping promote some of the way our workflow is today because of what he was doing with Prince. So understand that this is, information. I want everybody to take this and really internalize it because it's not bashing anything. He's personally not choosing it, and that's fine. And guess what? The interactions with AI, the collaborations are vast. There's no one way. Just because you create something on Suno doesn't mean that that's the master. You can create something on Suno and have cats play it over. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's an interpretation.
Yeah,
it's like an interpretation, a real good one.
Yeah, there's no one way of doing it, and nothing is right or wrong. Here's my phrase that I say all the time: if you were dope before AI, you'll be dope after AI. Period.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
So it's like we got to stop using it as a crutch and an excuse. It's just a tool.
Right.
It doesn't. Let's not jump on the bandwagon of AI. Because if you were popping before AI or during AI, it's going to come out in your creativity. So let's not use it as an excuse. You know what I'm saying? So
I gotta say this. I'm sorry. Sheila and I, growing up together, Sheila E. And I was her drummer on the Purple Rain tour. And it's because of guys like you, Trevor, that I stopped playing drums. Okay, all right, okay. I said it. You're in the next year in the same room with Dennis, or El Negro Horacio, and you're like, oh, I quit, But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Even though the Lynn machine was playing 1 in 3, just 1 in 3, Sheila also, it's amazing because we grew up no microphones, one monitor, one microphone for the whole band, and then the real understanding of where we live as percussionists, right? Whether it's 4/4 or 6/8 or is it?
Right.
Right, all right. And how you can manipulate 1 in 3 to feel like 6/8 or 4/4.
Yeah.
So it's really totally grasping your surroundings.
Yeah.
Using it to the fullest. And Bashiri, I mean, I still have problems finding stuff on my phone. And now you're writing stuff through AI, and that's phenomenal. I have to pick your brain on that one day. I hope we have a coffee. I'll be in New York. I'm gonna be looking for you, bro.
It's different, man. It's different these days.
Listen to this.
Yeah.
Even when we go to the doctor now, they turn on the phone, and what you say goes through AI.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Helps them diagnose.
And
it helps them be protected. Yeah.
We're not going to hide from it. You're going to have to accept it.
Yeah. But you don't have to bash it. And that's why I respect you. Because,
I'm not bashing it.
It's not, it's just like, hey man, I might not be, and you could always say you might not be using it yet. We don't know what the future's going to be. So that's that. And that's your choice. And it doesn't take away from anything that anybody has done or will do. So I appreciate you all for being honest about it and not being polarized about it. Kev, what about you on this question? What do you think?
I feel the same way. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's just another tool that is happening right now. And I know just between all 4 of us, AI will never replace us. It just can't.
Right.
Because there's the humanity that we bring to what we do is irreplaceable. There's just a certain way that the Bash is going to play a shaker.
Yeah.
Or there's a certain way that Carl's going to play a timbal.
Yeah.
A certain way I'm going to play a tambourine. Yeah, it can be kind of duplicated by AI, and it eventually might get better. I'm not worried about it. Thankfully, we've all made created our roads in front of us, and now we're all traveling down those roads, right? So I have a career, Carl has a career, you have a career, Bash has a career based on the fact that we are humans and we're musical and we come in and get it done.
Yeah.
At the moment. And so AI is a tool that, Bash is using it. I haven't used it in any musical sense yet. Only thing I used AI for was just some artwork for a single that I dropped.
Sure.
That was it. But it's a tool and will continue to evolve, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But man, when when any of us play a shaker, it feels a certain way that just AI cannot duplicate that
%1,000,000.
kind of. It's a simple instrument. It's just one little egg, even just to start with an egg.
Right.
It can't really be duplicated in the way that the musicality that we bring to it.
Yeah.
Also, as far as I'm concerned, for what we do, there's a whole cultural element here. We're not talking about, besides the pop music industry that we work in, and the pop music world that we move in, we all come from a tradition, a cultural tradition that has to be maintained. And AI cannot maintain that. It's up to you to maintain that. You have to bring that cultural element into what you're playing. That drum right there, it's of the earth.
Right.
It's communicating with the earth. It's communicating with spirits above, right? That part of it will never go away. So I'm not worried about AI being a threat to what I do, because this part of what we do it's not just music, it's culture. It's tied to dance. It's tied to healing. It's tied to stories, historic, oral histories. The drums are speaking a language.
Yeah.
Literally, if you go to Nigeria and see somebody playing a talking drum, they're actually speaking, and the person who speaks that language can translate it for you. Same on any of those instruments.
Yeah.
So that cultural element is what roots us, and I think will keep us moving forward playing music no matter where we go. The live thing is irreplaceable.
Yeah.
It requires humanity, because you're interacting with people. People respond to you.
Yeah.
We have all four of us have no idea of the millions of people that have been touched by seeing us play, hearing us play something.
Yeah.
And when I know for a fact, I don't get to play a lot of Cuban Latin music like I used to, but I play with Luis Conte's band, and I play congas in that band. And I can't tell you, every time I'm serious, every time we do the gig, several people come up to me and say, "You look like you were having so much fun." And I'm like, that's because this is humanity. We're interacting, we're playing music for people, and people are responding. So, like that tool is there, and it's great or it's bad. This depends on how it's used. And I'm not really threatened by it. I embrace the electronics. I've been using them for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Using samplers and all that stuff. And I program stuff on, keys on my own recordings. So it's not really a threat, I don't think, to any of us if we approach it in the right spirit. It's, it's just another tool.
Yes, sir, Karl.
Trev, some of the question that you posed had some side of some guys are unhappy with AI and what's going on. And I can understand that. I'm going to protect those people because we are those people.
Sure.
We are people that you, Trevor, come from a lineage of music.
Yeah.
We've studied so hard and respected the music so much and admired the players so much to become who we are today. So we are trees now that spawn fruits, right? Okay, right? So we have roots, we have raíces that come from a dirt that is rich in minerals. And now we have a guy that didn't go to Harvard, didn't go to Boston School of Music, because our Boston School of Music was touring. He didn't go to, PIT, Berkeley. He's some guy that says, I want a salsa song that sounds like Mark Anthony. Oh, let's put Alain Perez in there. Oh, and for the hell of it, put a backbeat of Prince.
Right.
Boom.
Yeah, it's real. It's real. That's a real thing.
He doesn't know anything about music.
Yeah.
This is why guys are defensive about it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I can understand that. I can understand that to a certain extent. But for a guy that doesn't really know, like myself, doesn't really know I hear it and I know what feels good because we're only three things: sound, vibration, and resonance. That's what we are. Okay. And so it doesn't mean that I know the major 9 and the major 3rd, but when I hear it through AI, I go, oh my God, that resonates with me.
Yeah.
I can use that in a way, but let's put a different interpretation on it. So it is a tool, like Bashiri says,
Yep.
you know, and hit Kevin, first pitch, home run. It's the culture.
Yeah.
It's never going to know anything about our culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. It never
Because
will understand
the
it.
drummer culture, the drummer community is way, way different than the bass player guy.
Well, let's stay. I want
Yeah.
to talk about that. So first of all, I want to let everybody know, if you want to check out some crazy, historic, like, you know, tracing rhythms from Africa to Congo Square, you can check out Kev's project, The Crossing. But another thing I want to talk about, since we're talking about culture now and the world is where it is, this is another elephant in the room that I'm so happy we all are here today, because just like a lot of stuff that has happened in the world, in this country over the years, you know, there's been a lot of division. You know, there's been an attempt to divide us, you know, people that they once considered minorities that are soon going to become the majority. But, you know, there's been a lot of attempts to divide us. And sometimes, you know, with certain people, you do feel that in the percussion community, you know, the drum community, the Latino versus Black community. It's a subtle thing now. You know, New York can get vibey in certain vibes, you know, certain places. I've experienced it. I won't say the gig, I won't say the person, but I literally was on a major gig with somebody and they were really trying to like foul me up. Like, it was a weird energy. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, given what's happening right now, playing out in front of everybody across this whole country, you know, everybody on here is of different ethnicities, and it's like, what do you? First of all, what you said, Kev, makes so much sense, because our culture comes out, you know, in what we play in these drums, and it's also a great equalizer. You know what I'm saying? Because we all play stuff from other cultures, and it gets you to learning the other cultures, and you start learning that, oh, these are just other cats just like me. But there is a divide that doesn't just go to percussion. You know, it goes to a lot of stuff, you know, and this is stuff that was put on us as people. There's a comedian named Godfrey, who I love, was one of my favorite guys. He's, you know, he does a great Trump impression, but he did another one where he was like, man, I'm walking down the street in New York and I see this cat. I was like, what's up, brother? He's, hey, bro, I know black. I know me, man. I know black. You know, he's like, and he's darker than me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's like, but no black, no black, no black. You know, so it's like we have this thing that's brewing that's amazing to me, that really exists. And I'm so proud to have this particular group on today, because this doesn't exist in this group. But I want all of us to speak on it, because it's something that is real. And I think we need to now more than ever come together and forget all that stuff. Go ahead, Bash.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that you brought that question up, because when I first started, I was more of a session guy, and nobody really saw me, you know, until I started really touring, you know, and my first major tour was Steve Winwood Roll With It. So that was like my first like major tour. Before that, I had toured with the Village People. I had, you know, done a bunch of other stuff. But anyway, when I first met Karl Perazzo, right, he embraced me like a brother. All right. He and your brother, you know, our beloved brother who passed away, he embraced me like a brother. And I was like, I wasn't sure, you know, what was going to happen. Same thing when I first met Giovanni. Giovanni stepped to me at the NAMM show, Bashiri, Bashiri, Bashiri.
Right.
And he started running to me. And I was like, whoa, what's up, bro? My first time meeting him, you know, he hugged me like a brother. So, you know, the thing is, we know people who do what we do, and we do it for real, and we're serious about it, and we're trying to live a life of excellence. We know, you know, we know. So Karl Perazzo, he knew. It's like, oh, that's Bashiri, that's my boy. And that's what it was,
Yeah.
you know?
Love. Yep.
Same thing with any other ethnic guy who I've met who's different ethnicity than me. It's always been like embrace and love. Even though like the stuff that I was playing on records wasn't folkloric, it wasn't traditional. You know, it was like,
Right.
oh wow, what is that? You know,
Yeah.
Carl and everybody was like, oh wow, that's kind of cool, you know. And they were like, oh, you a brother.
Right.
So that's what I experienced. I experienced nothing but embrace, acceptance, and you know, I've been brought right into the fold of rhythmic brotherhood.
Well, brothers, I appreciate you all so much for coming, man. It's been an incredible conversation today. Bashiri and Karl and Kevin, man, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. And man, you know, next time we got to do something. Anybody want to plug anything before they get out of here?
Buy my record.
Yeah, come on. All right, well.
I got a project out, The Crossing.
BashiriJohnson.com. BashiriJohnson.com.
There it is. And The Crossing by Kevin Ricard. Check that out. So, all right, cool. Well, appreciate y'all for coming, and you know, we'll do this again. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate that. It helps us with the content moving forward. Also, we have our membership program, Backstage, various tiers, and you can also join that now. Also, our store is connected to the site now, so if you like any merch, anything from the TrevBeats store, check that out, and that helps the channel move forward as well. And until then, we out. Peace.
It's the TrevBeats Show and we out. We out. We out. We out. We out. We out. It's the TrevBeats Show and we out. It's the TrevBeats.